Hi, this is Aaron GoBe, and welcome to the GoBe podcast. I'm the CEO of GoBe Rewarded, and this podcast we're talking about military transition from military life to civilian life. Today, we actually have a really awesome guest. This is King Richie. King Richie was my team leader back in, what would that be, 2013, 2014, somewhere around there.
2013.
Yeah, 2012 to 2013 was my team leader back over at 3rd Recon Battalion, and interestingly enough, you just retired not too long ago.
I did.
But how long ago was that?
November of 2022, so exactly a year.
So about a year since your transition to retire. So you did the full 20 years retired.
24 years.
24 years. Okay,
yeah.
so you were able to fully retire and everything like that. That's cool. Because, I just did the 5 years, got out. So I know that we both have, two way different...
despite our best efforts.
Despite our best efforts.
Keep you in, yeah. Yeah, you were ready to get out.
I think I was. But, tell me, obviously we know each other really well, but just so you could, tell the folks at home or everybody listening on the podcast right now. When did you join the military? And what branch you serve in, MOS, all that.
I joined the Marine Corps in 1997.
Okay.
It was December 2nd, so when I graduated, it was actually 1998.
Okay.
So, and I joined to get money for college because I knew, back then there was the GI Bill that would pay for college if you were a reservist. So I decided, I'd like to do that. I kind of. At the time, I wasn't making ends meet. I couldn't go to school and work at the same time. Just wasn't working out. And the Marine Corps was going to provide me that extra money to go to college.
Nice.
And then, so I was a reservist for a few years. And then 2003, when the war kicked off in Iraq, I was activated. And I kind of fell in love with the active duty life. And so I decided to stay active duty.
Okay.
Then I did that until 2022. So.
Okay. Cool. And so you didn't join as a recon contract or anything. What got you into recon? Basically?
I was a combat engineer originally.
Okay.
I went to Camp Lejeune, Courthouse Bay, went to engineer school, and I loved being an engineer. And if anybody talked crap about engineers, we were gonna fight, right? Then when I was in Iraq, I saw some recon guys, and I thought, that job looks more fun than my job.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's a fun job. And I thought, if I'm going to do this full time, then I'm going to do a job that's fun. So, and I need to, I feel like everybody talks about recon like something that they're going to try out for someday.
Yeah.
And I remember telling myself, I better do it now or stop talking about it. And by then I was about 27, so I was the oldest guy probably trying out at that time. But that's kind of what pushed me to try out for recon. So.
Nice. And so, of course, you made it through and everything like that. And I know there's a whole, it's all different nowadays, too. They have I remember I was the last person, because we switched from having the hooches to the barracks.
Yeah.
And I remember being the last RIP class that was in the hooches, because I was basically being hazed in the new kids hooch for a good 2 or 3 weeks, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, we have these barracks. Why don't you guys all move in?"
Did you pipeline?
This is when the pipeline was first starting. I'm not even sure if the pipeline was started, but yeah, we went to jump school right after, and then we were supposed to go to dive, but then we didn't.
Right. So there was a thinking back then when you were a student. There was thinking back then that the brand new recon guys wouldn't be able to graduate, the pipeline schools because they didn't have enough experience, and maybe a keeper of the badge kind of attitude from the old guys.
Yeah.
And then you guys were the test bed. You're around your class, with you and Farmer and Pace and Meltz and
Yeah.
Sanders, all those guys, you guys were the test bed. And then since you passed a lot of those classes, everybody was like, that gave the thumbs up to the recon community.
I didn't even know that. That's actually really good to know.
Yeah, to have the pipeline. So good thing you passed.
Yeah, I was about to say. Well, they made it such a big. I always found it was interesting that the Marine Corps always made such a big deal out of jump school.
Yeah.
And then you get to jump school and you realize there's like 500 Army guys chilling there, that like one dude just like walked in and didn't even know he was going to jump school or something like that. Like some cadet that's not even in the military yet is already there, and you're like, wow, this is like, we were sitting there doing push-ups for the last 3 weeks and competing and everything. It's like, wow, these people get to go here just on a holiday weekend.
Basically, you just got to get through jump school so you can go to free fall.
Yeah.
That's the ticket. Yeah.
And that's over in Yuma, right?
One of the free fall schools is in Yuma. There's one in Coolidge.
Okay.
The Marine Corps one now that we've developed our own now, it's in Coolidge, Arizona.
Okay, I was about to say, I didn't even know that. Yeah, we had our own.
Part of your accomplishments as one of the pipeline guys. So
nice. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, we've.
Well, I know there's also there's also one of the things that the kids nowadays, for posterity reasons, maybe we'll put on you went through Marine Corps sniper school, which unfortunately isn't.
Yeah,
the thing
that's
anymore.
gone. It'll come back when it's needed.
Yeah, I figured so.
Like Mary Poppins. Or something. yeah, it'll come back though. There's still the skills are there. People know how to shoot long range, and there's still good weapons in the Marine Corps arsenal. And we'll just, the next time a sniper school's needed, it'll stand up again.
Oh yeah. No, I don't think you can just have a designated marksman or whatever. Like the theory behind everything is to take care of all the Marine Corps' needs.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. But that's another 3 podcasts. I think figuring out the sniper issue.
Yeah,
how to integrate in the Marine Corps.
I'm sure there could be a whole podcast talking about certain schools, why they're dropped and if they're coming back. I figured, I always thought tanks were a little bit weird, so when they dropped, I was like,
Yeah.
Marine Corps having tanks was always a little bit weird thing, but so you've been out for about a year now.
Yep, 1 year.
And is there anything that somebody told you about retirement and you just didn't listen? You kind of wish you did.
Yes. And now I tell all my friends that are still in, like, make sure you do these things. So one of them, is I thought I would have plenty of time to take care of, any medical issues I had. And, twofold. One of the reasons is for any disability reasons you might have, or any disabilities you might have. So whether you did 5 years or 25 years, you want to make sure that any service-connected injury, and let's face it, if you're carrying a backpack, or if you're just climbing in and out of a 7-ton, there's a chance to get injured. Those things are high,
And I will say this, and I did the same thing. I didn't apply for disability. Probably should have. Now I've got to backtrack and do all this other stuff with it. But I think a lot more people would be a little bit more for it if they didn't call it disability.
Right.
There's something about, like, even saying, like, oh yeah, make sure you get your disability. It's like, well, that's like, I don't know, like if you're out, even in the civilian world, if you're like, oh yeah, I'm applying for disability, that's just because you're like some bum with like a back problem. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know. So it was explained to me that disability. It was explained to me that when you say disability, it sounds negative, and it's more like, what abilities do you have, or what inabilities do you have that make it so you can't do a certain job? Like, can you stand up anymore for 8 hours a day doing your job? I could do that a lot easier when I was younger. And it's, I might be in pain. My knee might be in pain. But then
you also wonder too, how much of it was just getting old,
yeah,
and true. How much of it is service connected. And
that's true. Getting old was service connected.
Sure. But yeah, I think applying for disability being a really big one that I think everybody did tell me, and I was just like, I was like, oh, I don't need it. I'm completely able-bodied. And then, I think and I've got a personal theory, and again, this could be a whole podcast in and of itself, but I think low-level static line is there just because the disability people want it to be there.
Yeah. Well, I remember running an RPAT with you, and we both didn't seem very able-bodied that day. You remember those RPATs we did?
Yeah.
It was terrible. You're just running forever with 50 pounds on your back.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't feel able-bodied for a week after that. But I think, so I would do that for sure. I would just have my medical issues in order.
Okay.
Before I got out. And they allow you to do your medical claim, even if it's something small. I also look at it, my dad was in Vietnam, my grandfather was in World War II, both my grandfathers. And then since they didn't get the benefits that we have now, and because of people that they voted into office and laws and bills that they voted for, I feel like, now we have all these benefits. Now, I can go to school and have it paid for, and my kids can, have school partially paid for. All the VA benefits are out there now because of our grandparents and our parents.
Yeah.
And people they voted for. If I don't take advantage of that, I feel like it's almost a slap in the face of all the hard work that they did.
That's a good way to think about it, because I think a lot of people, they look at getting government benefits sometimes kind of like, receiving welfare or something, and I think that's just like a kind of like weird, especially I'd say, people who were raised in the 90s and before that, it was like, well,
right.
You don't want to be on welfare, that's for...
Yeah. That's one thing I would. The other thing is when you got out, your medical insurance was through the military before you got out, and everything that was wrong with you you just went to the doctor on base, and then they took care of you. And then you get out, and now all of a sudden you don't have insurance anymore.
Yeah.
Or you have to have your own insurance. Kind of thinking that process through of like, okay, how's my family going to have medical insurance? I think people take that for granted in the military.
So that's one of the things that you wish somebody would have told you about a little bit ahead of time to kind of get your insurance affairs in order before you retire.
I knew I'd have insurance because I was retiring. You got out after 5 years, so you didn't have medical insurance.
And I'll say that, even when Lizzie was being born and stuff like that, we went to like a free clinic to get her first ultrasound, through like Pathway Health Clinic. So I do have to say we had to figure out that insurance situation a little bit quicker. But even things like, I don't even know, is there a thing for even like your life insurance or anything like that once you get out?
There's options.
Okay.
But I knew I'd have medical insurance, but what I didn't expect was all my care that I was receiving at that point, if I was seeing a chiropractor or a certain dentist or a certain doctor, it was just gone. November, at the end of November, it was gone. And then I had to start over, get a new doctor and get a new dentist, and so in the meantime it could take months. If you're seeing a chiropractor weekly, now you don't get to see one for 6 months because you got to find a new one that's covered under your new medical insurance. And so I was not as prepared for that. So the ongoing maybe physical therapy that I needed, or chiropractor service, or even a teeth cleaning.
You can't just go on base and go grab it.
I got to start over again. So
kind of find your people or your network, or
and there's systems out there to help you with that. I just didn't take advantage of them.
Because you think it's like, well, how hard is it going to be for me to find a dentist? There's one at the end of my block, or whatever. And so what are some things that the Marine Corps taught you that does apply to your civilian life?
I'm finding that that hard work, just working hard, is going to pay off. So, you know what it took to be a recon Marine, but you didn't have to choose that. You chose one of the hardest jobs in the Marine Corps, and then I think it paid off for you. We had a fun time, at least the time we spent together. We had a good time. You had a future in the recon community if you wanted one, and but you definitely got to see the fruits of those labors. And getting out, I kind of had this idea that the Marine Corps, maybe holding me back a little bit my last few years in. And once I get out, my career is just going to take off. Like from here, it's just going to go up.
Yeah.
And then I kind of realized, like, nope, you got to work hard for it. It's still, if you want anything besides the free handout, which doesn't give you much, then you're going to have to work hard for it. So whether I'm in school, when I work, whatever it is, I have to work hard for it.
Yeah, and I think what goes along with the hard work is just the not quitting aspect.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing, especially with being in the recon community. I mean, it's something like, I don't know, I used to scream it before lunch every day.
Yeah.
And everything like that with the recon creed. Like, the not quitting aspect is something that I think just even a lot of civilians don't necessarily get that. And it's one of those things that I found surprising when I even with me with 15 employees, I mean, I don't know, there's the whole silent quitting and loud quitting and everything. There's a whole bunch of quitting that went on over the last couple of years. And, but it's interesting because, like, I don't think that anybody who was in our community that was even really crossing their mind was quitting.
Right. Yeah, that's, to quit is to fail, right? Like, it isn't trying and not succeeding, that's not failure. Quitting is the only way you could really fail. So
that's and that's another thing that we always I always found interesting, especially getting out. You always have people. It's like, I tried out for recon and everything like that, and they got out for everything except for quitting.
Right.
Whereas, like, as we saw, it was literally 99%. Like, they if you broke your leg, they would let you get all healed up, so, and they'd put you right back in rep. If that was the case.
I remember an instructor telling me, if you drown and I rescue you, you're still in recon. But if you quit, or if you grab the side of the pool, then you're out. So just go ahead and drown, and I'll rescue you, I promise. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
I remember it was like, first day at RIP, we literally dragged all our stuff from ITB down to the schoolhouse from the barracks, in our hands. And I think it was literally that day we went in the pool. Like, they just threw us on the bus, put us in the pool, and like I think it was because they were looking at classing some people up, because I think 1 TAC 12 was kind of about to start and was looking a little bit empty. So they were just like, okay, let's see who can class up real quick. But I remember that first time I got set in the pool and, treading bricks with all our clothes on and everything like that. I remember I saw everybody was grabbing the side of the pool and just quitting, like one after another. And I was like, oh, is that like what we're supposed to do or something like that? And I remember, like, I almost grabbed the side of the pool, and then, like, there's just something that told me, like, no, don't do that. And, like, that was actually the last time. I was like, that's the last time I'm ever going to think about quitting. Right. Ever again in my life. I remember that day very specifically. And I would say transitioning is a very similar thing. Like, you just, things can get really tough. You might think that, the future looks really bad, but if you can get past some of the more immediate pain, basically, or immediate, like, I'm having trouble breathing, or, I'm having some financial issues, or, I'm having some family marital issue, whatever it is. If you can get past that initial piece of it, you already know that, like, as you mentioned, you're still recon at the end of the day. Right. Hey, you're still dad, you're still husband, you're still everything else, as long as you don't quit.
I remember I would tell the students when I was, I eventually made it back to recon school to be an instructor, and I remember telling them, like, hey, you're treading water and everything's fine. Like, you can do this for hours. I was like, but now we're going to give you some friction. We're going to give you a brick. We're going to make everybody get close, so you can't tread water very easily. Like, life's going to do that to you too. Life's going to hand you a brick in the deep end. And what do the people do when they get that brick? They stop kicking. They stop using their technique. They stop thinking, and they stop breathing properly. Or they start attacking the people next to them. Like, that you do that in life too. If you get handed friction, you get handed a brick in the deep end, what are you going to do? You're going to attack the person next to you? Or are you going to just stop kicking? You're going to let yourself sink? Like, or are you going to kick harder? And, you know, I try to apply some of these things to real life to the students as best I could, you know, and then hopefully, you know, I always had this idea when you were in my team too, you know, and I always had this idea that you were going to go to combat. You know, that was the plan. You know, maybe you got lucky. You know, you got out before you had your opportunity, but I knew that you were going to go one day, and you know, I didn't need you to be good at treading water. I needed you to be good at not quitting if you were treading water, right? So, you know, I feel like in life, same thing. You know, all this stuff applies to life. It all applies to your marriage, or it applies to your job, or, you know, losing your cool when you get a flat tire on the freeway or something.
Yeah.
So I think if you stop and think about it, or your instructors are good, they're going to attach it to real life, and it's going to make more sense.
So sometimes life hands you a brick in the deep end. Are we making T-shirts or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you remember? Maybe I shouldn't be telling this, but do you remember the bricks? So when I became an instructor, it was after you went through. You already graduated for years already.
Okay.
And I went back and we painted numbers on all the bricks with weight. So they're all 10-pound bricks, but some of them were labeled 12 pounds. 8 pounds, 10 pounds.
Were you messing with people?
4 pounds, 2
That's
pounds.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And they would fight over the light bricks.
The 5-pound. I get the.
Well, I got the 12-pounder yesterday, and they were all 10 pounds. You know.
Oh
they
man!
They get so mad at each other for. I don't know if they ever figured it out, but it was like stenciled on their knife, so it looked like it was that way from the company. You know.
Oh yeah. No, it wasn't just like like painted on or something. Like
we painted on with stencils, so it looked professional, and then.
It wasn't like just a permanent marker.
You could hear them arguing about it. Like,
oh man, that's hilarious. No, I that level of man, that's genius.
Yeah, it was a good time. You can see that you could have been there. You could have been an instructor. Just another year.
Another year.
Probably would. A lot of your peers became recon instructors.
No, it does. It seems like they all went through the schoolhouse.
Yeah,
it was fun. Yeah, you know, but it's also in our profession. I think it's really hard to get people to do drill instructor for B-billet or recruiter or whatever.
Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, everyone wants to go back to the schoolhouse.
Right. Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a requirement for us to be a recruiter or a drill instructor. So if you want to, you have to request it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I don't know.
I've known a few guys to do it. I wanted to be a drill instructor. Before I was recon, I wanted to be a drill instructor.
Doesn't everybody though?
I know.
That's like saying you want to be a fireman when you're 5 years old. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Like, you know, my 4-year-old wants to be a police officer. You know, but it's like, but that's because that's the only profession you really know.
Yeah, and it's cool. You know.
Yeah, it's cool.
But then after I just ran out of time. Like I still kind of think it'd be cool, but you only have so many years in your career. And that's a 3-year commitment to be a drill instructor.
Yeah, I'm about to say It's
I didn't want to give up 3 years of being a recon Marine to do that. So,
how's your family handled your retirement?
Some of the hardships of retirement. You know, maybe the uncertainty of like where money's coming from. I tried to keep that from my kids as much as possible.
Okay.
I have a son who's 19 and he's graduated from high school. He's in college now. And so I kind of give him grown up talk about what's going on in my life just so he can learn from it. But I try not to like put on a worried face in front of him or the kid, you know, or my daughter. So I've tried to shield them a little bit from that. My wife, like there's days where, you know, maybe my pride, you know, allows me to get upset when my wife's trying to like get to the bottom of like how we're going to handle our next problem as a family.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, but generally I've found through the years of being in the Marine Corps, when things are hard on the family, my wife, you know, if there's a gap that needs filled, she fills it, you know. So, you know, she's willing, you know, she's like, well, what are we going to do? You know, well, if I have to, I'll get a second job. You know, that's always an option in the back of her mind.
Yeah.
And so, that's nice to know. You know, I don't want her to have to do that. You know, I kind of went through a few months of I just didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I got to do what I wanted to do for 24 years.
Yeah.
I was like, now I feel like I might have to do something I don't want to do. And there's a lot more options out there of things I don't want to do.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that's true.
But I really, I was a little bit lost, you know, and then, you know, trying to, like I said, figuring out life outside the military. And I think my wife, I guess it was an opportunity for her to handle it very poorly, and she wouldn't have been faulted at all. But she handled it well, you know. So, she could have really handled it poorly,
like wives always do.
Yeah,
they always surprise you with how well they handle.
Yeah, and she's
brutal situations.
We've been married for almost 20 years, you know, which. In Marine Corps, that's kind of an anomaly. I
was about to say that's in Marine Corps years, that's like 70,
that's
right?
Yeah, that's a lot. So, yeah, so I think the opportunity was there for her to really, like, go, you know, fly off the handle or whatever. But she didn't at all, and she was supportive, and you know, I'm reminded of, like, I'm always reminded of this, like, line from, what is that song, like, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys, you know that?
Oh yeah.
When he goes like he's not wrong, he's just different, and his pride won't let him do things to make you think he's right. You know, like, most of the time maybe it was my pride that, you know, would piss my wife off. But it wasn't the situation as much, you know. And then I had to get over myself, and then we could work together and come up with a solution. But a year into it now, we're rolling. We're doing pretty good and figuring out my future.
So you've been using your GI Bill over at Palomar, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And how's that been?
Good. As soon as I got out, I knew that until I knew what I wanted to do, I might as well go to school. The Marine Corps was paying for it, and they were paying with the post 9/11 GI Bill. They were going to pay my mortgage too.
Okay,
so,
nice.
So I was like, well, then that's what I'm going to do until I figure out what I want to do and I grow up, you know. And so I've been doing that now for 2 semesters.
Okay.
And it's going good. The first semester was a little rough, you know, trying to figure out how to be a student again. And
kind of a Billy Madison effect almost.
Oh, yeah. You know, just figuring out how to type with all my fingers, you know. And but it was, you know, I think I would just throw time at the problem.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what I had plenty of. So
now you got some time on your hands.
So I throw time at the problem, and then it ended up working out, you know.
Nice.
So, you know, I knew you had GoBe Rewarded. It was up and running, and you were growing over the years. And I think we talked, because I was taking a marketing class.
Yeah.
So I could get extra credit if I gave an ad to my professor, you know, a marketing ad that had to do with what we were learning that week.
Nice.
So I'm like, well, shameless plug of my buddy, and I'll put his ad.
Nice.
I'll find his ad, and I think I called you. I'm like, hey, send me an ad.
Hey, I remember that. Remember you texted me. You're like, send me an ad, and I'm like, here, take this interactive video or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know what you used it for.
A couple extra credit points, and then it's a local school for here, so maybe one of those students will be able, you know.
Yeah. I think we put their web design program on one of our interactive videos that we have out. But yeah, I mean, it's great. It's a great local resource, and yeah, I know that we've even done some video work for them over the past couple of years on the VPST side. But
one of the other students in my class asked for your phone number to your office, and I don't know if they ever got in contact.
I think so. We get a lot of people call, ask about careers.
I think they wanted, I don't know what they want exactly, but I felt like, well, I know, that's the nice thing about the recon community. 99% of those guys, you can recommend them. Whatever they're doing in life after they get out, you can recommend them. And that's kind of nice.
I mean, I think that even transfers into kind of the, we're calling it marketing and business tips segment of everything. So it's going to be a little less, more about what do you think on an issue or anything like that. And that would be, more of, what, I've heard a lot of tips of, when it comes to transferring into civilian life, how to get your resume or your network or everything together. And, I've heard the tip of, you always have this thing when you get out, and I can give you my opinion on it. I want to kind of get your opinion on it. When people say like, oh, well, you did this in the military, so it transfers to this and put this on your resume. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? Like, they're like, oh yeah, the fact that you went through, that you went through, you have a good cookie where it's like, oh yeah, don't put a good conduct medal, put basically serve without getting in trouble or something like that. Kind of put the translation of that stuff.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts of putting that on a resume? So,
it's hard to find relevancy in the civilian community if you just transfer it straight over. Like, nobody wants to hire, a sniper with 4 combat deployments, to work at a daycare.
Yeah, I get that.
So I teach. It's funny. I teach Sunday school to 4-year-olds, and they're like, "What are you like?" Our church has at the main campus has a security job that they and I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine, but."
I don't necessarily want to
I feel like I've been a platoon sergeant. That's a lot like 4-year-old Sunday school,
Yeah.
I can do it, I can,
a little bit more like it than you think.
Yeah, so I thought, it does, the resume, I've sometimes, it doesn't translate well. But the leadership skills do.
Yes.
And then, again, the networking also does.
Well, and that kind of goes in the next piece of the network, and I think that's one of the things that...
maybe work under pressure.
Yeah, you can work well under pressure and pieces like that, but, I think, the other piece that would be is to get your... my other marketing tip would be to essentially get your civilian network in place before you get out.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. I think if you're not building your ability to network while you're in, because some guys just overlook that and they think I'm just gonna focus on, beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, or I'm just gonna focus on being, this tough, hard shell recon marine or infantry guy or whatever service you're in, and then you get out and then now your transition's even harder because you really didn't network well even while you were in.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is I think your military network is surprisingly, swept out from under you when you do get out, because you're not in anymore. Right. And it's one of those things where you're thinking like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna have this, I think it's kind of like a lot of people think like when they go to college or something like that. Oh yeah, I was in a fraternity, so I'll have this great network of people. And it's like, well, yeah, I was in the military, so I'll have this great network of people. Well, most of those people are still in, and so unless you're really trying to get a job on base or something like that, it may not apply. And then the people who did get out, they may not even be trying to network a whole lot or anything.
They went back home.
They went back home. That's the big one, is they went back home. So even your personal civilian network is a little harder to lean on. And so, I even recommend when people get out, hey, if you plan on going back home to your hometown, and it's surprising because I actually, I have a Airbnb, and a lot of the guys that stay in it are guys who are transitioning out, and they're, they're off base for a couple weeks, and they'll, stay with their girlfriend or their wife or anything like that. And, they're always asking me about, like, how do you build your network or anything like that? Because, of course, being out here, I'm originally from Ohio. Yeah. I didn't know anybody here, getting out. But if I were to go back, like, even we are talking about your friends, family, everything like that, is there anybody that you can lean on even back home for that network? Does your dad know somebody at the plant? Does your, do you know any professors at the schools? Do you know, if you're looking to get into education, do you know anybody in the education system, even through your, your siblings or something like that? That I don't think people think about networking, but it's something that it's going to be a lot.
I think people want to know. They do appreciate military guys, and they want, guys and gals, and they want to know what you did, and they're intrigued by that. And maybe everybody for 1 minute in their life thought about joining the military, and so you can almost capitalize on that.
I think you can capitalize on it, but I think you have to follow up with something else. And I think that's something where, you kind of get the, I think if you came in with your military resume, and, any guy, especially in the recon community and stuff, you might even get an interview.
Right.
I'm thinking, like, you'll probably get the interview just because they feel like, oh, yeah, we should probably interview this guy, see what he's about. And, of course, you'll get, like, the thank you for your service sort of thing. But I even say this, like, even when it comes to business, I have never gotten a contract. No one's ever put pen on paper and say they're going to pay me money because I was a veteran.
Right.
It might be an initiative they're looking for. It might be looking, but I don't think anyone's gotten a job, outside of maybe, like, government work or something like that. But you're talking about, like, in the civilian world, and it was gotten a job because they're like, oh yeah, this guy was a veteran.
Solely probably not.
It's solely probably not. They got to follow up with something else, and I think that's something people have to give thought to. Is like, hey, what are you following up with?
Yeah, how do I market myself?
Exactly.
And that's where, and it comes back to, then can you perform? Basically, does that hard work you learned in the military, can you still provide that hard work at a civilian job? And that's a choice. Like, that's a choice, and I've seen people make the choice either way. Yeah, because you could choose just to not work hard.
Yeah, I've seen people be like, "Hey, I put all my hard work in this 5 or 10 years that I'm in right now. I put in all my hard work. Now I'm here to just relax and chill out in my mom's basement or whatever. Use my GI Bill."
Because I remember, like I said, I remember when you were brand new with all your buddies who were brand new. And I had just come back from, I think, my 4th combat deployment. And you were brand new. But what you had going for you was hard work. Yeah. All you guys were willing to work hard. And, so that went a long way. Like, you were moldable, you were workable, you were moldable, you were valuable, to me as the business owner, to me as the platoon sergeant or team leader, like, you were valuable because you worked hard, and your peers worked hard. If you could have showed up exactly the same way we were and just decided on a day-to-day basis not to work hard. Yeah. And your resume that you had up to that point, which was boot camp and recon school, would have meant nothing if you didn't work hard. So I think that might be the catalyst.
I think hard work transfers no matter on what you're doing. Whether that's in your family, civilian life, military, your business job, anything like that. Hard work transfers. Anywhere, and I think that a lot of people are. And I get it. We're in the days of AI, and we're in the we got Gen Z component and everything like that going in everywhere, but. There is no substitute for hard work. Right. And, you can work. I know a lot of people talk about, work smart, not hard. And I think there's a time and a place for that. But I think working hard is just something that, it's always welcome. Right. Hey, no one's going to be like, hey, I just think, all this hard work, it's kind of a turnoff, dude,
and I think you can, you personally, like, you have your own business, and it wouldn't happen without hard work. You didn't get it because you're a veteran.
No, and that's what I said. Yeah, nobody's ever signed a contract being like, "Oh, I'm doing business with you, Aaron, because you're a veteran." It's.
But I do think, and we've talked about it. Like, you haven't really capitalized on your veteran status in this community of Vista, right? You haven't really, and I think you should, because I know what you've been through.
Well, and that's one of the reasons for this podcast too.
Yeah, you should.
You can always humble brag about it a little bit more if you're interviewing other people.
Right.
But I think that's another thing that we kind of run into. I would say overall in the special operations community. There was even that one dude who was like a Navy SEAL who tells all the stories. Mr. Ballin, like. He talked a little bit about his Navy SEAL experience, and the Navy SEALs gave him a whole bunch of junk for it, essentially.
Oh,
yeah. And, I would say that even when I first started out and I talked a little bit, and it's not as bad nowadays, but people, we were at some point in time where you weren't even allowed to like put your face on Facebook or something like that because, not because it's classified or anything like that, but just because dudes would give you crap about it.
Right.
They'd be like, what was it? They'd always say, they'd be, compromise. Look, I got you a picture with you and your family and your kids, and it's like,
yeah,
dude, we can.
Yeah.
We're allowed to promote ourselves a little bit.
Right.
We don't all have to write a book like the Navy SEALs do, but I think that we can promote ourselves a little.
I think so. Yeah, and once you get out to like. It's worth it. It's worth it to get it out there, and then the community for the most part, like you said, they'll give you a shot because you're a veteran, and then, but it's going to be up to you to run with that,
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
no, definitely got to follow it. Well, it's been a pleasure having you, King, and you're definitely welcome back on the podcast anytime. Let me know if there's anything else that comes up that we might be able to help you out with here over at GoBe Rewarded or VPSD. But yeah, it was exciting talking to you.
I will. I'm thinking when I'm ready for a job, I'll have you interview me.
Okay, for sure.
Just to work the bugs out.
Yeah. Well, hey, I like interviewing people, and then if you got a marketing degree, hey, that's more than what I got. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You got the looks. You got the hair.
Hey, it's just keeping it for now.
Yeah.
But all right, awesome. Well, it was a pleasure having you, man.
Thanks.